Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. All right, so this is going to be the off the water research segment for the Swinging Bridge Reservoir video. So we're going to dive a little bit more into off the water research since I'm going to break these videos down into 4 segments now. Basically, I'm going to show you guys a little more in depth what I look for when I'm about to fish a body of water I've never fished before. I'm going to try and get up there this Sunday and pre-fish it. But as of right now, let's jump right in and let me show you the research that I found so far on the computer. So I've been researching this reservoir for a couple days now. First thing I like to start off with is looking at these DEC pages for these lakes. This has a lot of information right here. If you can find one of these on the lake, it shows you a little bit about the lake, the physical features, the size of the lake, how deep the lake is. The average depth of this lake is 38 feet deep. So that tells you it's a deep lake. It's going to drop off pretty fast. There's not a lot of shallow shoreline. So electronics could definitely come into play on a reservoir like this. It shows you also about boat access. So we already know where one of the boat ramps are on this lake just by reading this. It tells you what type of fish are in the lake. So we're going to be targeting smallmouth and largemouth, obviously, but it shows you what other types of fish are in the lake: walleye, brown trout. So the bass could be eating the brown trout. Yellow perch, another fish that the bass could be targeting. White perch. There's also bluegill on this lake. So these are all species of fish that are food for the bass. So it's good to know. It's also good to know what other type of fish are competing with the bass. Like walleye would compete with the bass for the trout. So it's good to get this information. Also the fishing, it does give you a little rundown of how the fishing works on the lake. Some good information right here: old house foundations, masonry walls, gravel mounds, as well as old road beds. So this tells you that this lake is going to be kind of an offshore structure type of lake. There's not really going to be too much shoreline structure, but there's going to be a lot of sunken things offshore. It tells you that electronics may come into play big time for a body of water like this. So this gives you a little bit of rundown of what you're looking at coming up for before even getting on the water. Great habitat for bass. A great spot is fishing off the dam on the reservoir's south shore. So when we get into our mapping, that's a key spot that we're going to look at a little closer in our mapping because they're talking about it on the DEC site. Then I like to go a little further, see if I can find any other sites. I found this one here. It tells you a little bit more about the lake. It says right here, there's no shortage of fish. The Department of Environmental Conservation stocks this lake with trout, bass, pickerel, bluegill, carp, perch, catfish, walleye, largemouth bass, and crappie. They're abundant fish in the lake. It's a top fishing spot. So, just by reading stuff like this, you get a little bit more information. If you come up here, exciting place to fish. There's no restrictions on jet skis, but so it tells you that there's gas boats on this lake. That's good to know as a kayaker, what you're going to be up against. There are sandbars and boulders in less than a foot under the surface. So that basically tells you that those could be areas to look for. Sandbars and boulders, those are good staging areas for bass to ambush bait fish in less than a foot of water. So that could be good structure on the lake. It definitely gives you a good rundown. There are 2 public launches. So the DC site only showed us the one public launch. This talks about both of them. So now you know where both launches are on the lake. So it's good to, dig a little deeper and find a couple different pages and gather your information that way. Then, as always, I like to go look at images of the lake. Here's one of the boat ramps here. So you can see you could probably back a vehicle down this with no problem. Here's an aerial view of the lake. So you see there's houses around the lake, probably going to be some boat docks. You got this nice point that jets out into the middle of the lake. That could be, a key spot. You got boat docks on the lake. And always make sure, too, when you're looking at images, because sometimes images of other lakes will pop up, always check to make sure that this is actually Swinging Bridge. Right here is a key spot. Look at this. This looks like a pretty shallow water, back shallow water area. This could be key this time of year since we're getting into the fall. The bass are going to start pushing the bait fish back into these pockets and ambushing them. So these shallow areas back here are something good to look at. You could tell this is, pretty shallow area by just looking at the shoreline. So we could start looking around when we look at our mapping, trying to find pockets like this. Here's another good view of the lake. This looks like midsummer. This looks like, full summertime view of the lake. So, you get an idea. Here's a good aerial view of the lake. You can see it's got kind of like a rocky, sandy shoreline with some brush around it. So this looks like when the water was down low. I did look at my research. I couldn't find the page, but I did read that a few years ago the water was down. They had to drain a big chunk of the lake to repair a sinkhole by the dam. So being that the water was low for a long time, some of these images could be old images. So you could get a lot of information here. Like, for example, look at this saddle right here. If the water's up high, this could all be underwater. You might be flipping these bushes when we get there. But looking at spots like this saddle right here, this could be a key ambush area for fish, especially if this is sitting under 3 or 4 foot of water. So it's good to take a look at areas like this. Now we'll get into our mapping and look a little further. Here's the dam I was looking at earlier. You can see all this riprap along the dam. Look at how low the water level is. You can see it's normally up here. The water level is way down here. What does that do? That exposes these rocks here. Look at these two boulders on this point that just drops out into deeper water. You got another boulder here, and there's like a little saddle that connects it. This could be a key spot. So what I would do is I would look at this, then I go down to my Navionics chip, which is in my Lowrance unit on my kayak down in the garage, and I could actually bring this up and mark these boulders with waypoints. I could even come up, look at all these points. You got two nice secondary points right here, right near the dam. And as we come out, we could see, the water drops down pretty fast. You got this little bit of shoreline, and then it just drops down into deep water. But if the water's up, looking at these rocks here and stuff like that, some of this could be underwater now. So we'll have to look and see when we get there, how high up the water is. But this is all stuff to take into consideration. This right here, if you're looking to fish for smallies, this is a very rocky shoreline. We know how smallmouth like to get around rock. So if you're looking to target smallmouth in this tournament, this could be a good run right here. All things to take into consideration. This is a pretty big lake. It's pretty long. Look at this. Nice sandy shoreline with boulders all over it. If the water's levels up here, these could be all prime fishing. You can even see what's underwater here. You got a nice boulder here. You got rocks underwater here. You can see this forms a nice point here. Drops off in the deeper water. So this could be a key area. I'm definitely going to put a couple waypoints along this and mark the edge of it with my GPS. I'm going to check it out during pre-fishing. Look at this point here, the secondary point that kind of jets out into the lake. Another key spot. Tons of stuff. You could spend hours looking at these maps. I just want to show you guys areas that I look for. Look at this main point here. This main point jets way out into the lake. So I could go down on my GPS and mark the tip of this, put a couple waypoints around it, so when I'm fishing it, I know the shape of it on my GPS. Getting up here, we got some docks, we got some houses, some more points. Look at this point right here. You got a nice point that sticks out here. There's a nice saddle here, and then you got another whatchamacallit. You got another either gravel spot or this could be a rock here. Moving up, we got a backwater area here. This could be key. The bass could start pushing the bait fish up here. You can see a feeder creek coming into it. This could be a good area for bait fish early fall. Coming over here, you got more docks with points. You can get a lot of information by looking at the satellite imagery of a lake. Tons of docks right here. Dock fishing is always good. Then it turns into a pretty long river, and then this comes up here into kind of a backwater area. Now, if the lake was down low when this photo was taken, this is all flooded now. Look at this creek channel running through here. That could be some prime fishing, just marking that creek channel. So I'm going to mark the creek channel with a couple waypoints. I'm going to mark where it begins. I'm going to put a couple of waypoints where it turns, and then mark the end of it up here. If this is a big bay that's all flooded, this creek channel, the bass might be sitting in there. So, and then after looking at my satellite imagery, I like to go over to Navionics, and let's find Swinging Bridge. Okay, so now looking at our Navionics map, we could get a good idea now how deep this lake is. You can see there's not too many shallow bays, and it drops off very fast. It's a very deep lake with a lot of ledges. This is a man-made lake, so I guess it was dug out that way. And just going along the shoreline, there's not too many areas that are flats. You got a flat right here. These areas could be key this time of year, though, with bass pushing the bait fish up. So these are areas, that are rare on the lake. So it's good to mark. I definitely take a look at this area in pre-fishing. You definitely got some offshore humps to check out. This is a lake I'm definitely going to use my side imaging on, and trying to find some of that other structure that they were talking about with the underwater foundations and masonry walls and stuff like that. That's all going to come into play as well. You can see there's a nice backwater pocket right here, and a nice creek channel that kind of runs right into it. It's a nice flat here, but you can see for the most part, it just goes from 0 to like 30-40 feet very fast. So these some of these offshore humps might come into play. One thing I wanted to show you guys when I was looking at this too is I love Navionics, but it's not always 100% accurate. So always trust your satellite imagery over Navionics. Navionics is great, but if you take a look at this main point right here, okay, look at where it's showing. It's showing that from here to here it just drops right off, but it doesn't really form a point. Now when we go back into our mapping and we look at this, look at how far this point comes out before it drops off. This is very shallow here. This should be even at full pool maybe 5 feet, but when you go back to our Navionics, you don't see that point coming out. So always be careful of that. The person that does the map research and puts the time in and looks at the Google Maps and compares it to Navionics is going to know more about that point than the other guys on the lake, and it's going to give them an advantage. So always take that into consideration and look at multiple maps when you're doing research. Like I said, Navionics is good, but a lot of these charts are put together by data, and a lot of times our units, depending on how they're set up, our electronics units, the units guess. When they're not getting accurate data, it fills in the data for you, and so these aren't perfect maps. So always try to kind of compare them to something else. But it's a good way to get a feel for the lake, though. So we can definitely see this area right here is pretty shallow that we researched, and that comes into here. Now it's showing here being 4 or 5 feet deep. So this could be the lake at full pool. So if we go back to here, now we know that this image was probably taken, at a time where the water level was low. So we can compare that with this and kind of get a feel for what it's like if it's at full pool, and we kind of know exactly how deep this area should be by comparing it to Navionics. See, look, there's no water here. There's our creek channel, and then we go back to Navionics, and you can kind of see the creek channel running through here. So, but it's always good to get that perfect image, that satellite image. So that's our mapping. And like I said, I could spend hours looking at this, marking spots, running back and forth between here and my GPS and get waypoints and stuff like that. But it gives you an idea of what to look for. All right, so another cool mapping app to use is Fishity. Fishity is pretty cool because it shows you where other people have caught fish on the lake. Now, whether they're being honest or not, who knows? But it does show you another mapping feature of the lake. And what else is cool is you could see anglers who caught fish and the size of the fish they caught, when they caught the fish, and you could kind of get an idea. If you get a good picture, you could really, get creepy with it and, look at the background, kind of look at the shoreline structure where he's holding that fish and kind of try and figure it out. It's not really a great image, but, you might be able to kind of, where this guy caught this carp, you kind of look and get an idea of the area he was sitting in when he caught it. I'll get that deep into it and look at people's, images. You could tell this carp here probably came out of this grass area right here behind him. Here's a nice brown trout. There's a bass boat, but you get an idea what the lake looks like. Here's a smallmouth bass. You can see kind of the area where he caught it in. Sometimes you could get pieces of the puzzle just by looking at this. It looks like he might have caught this out in some deeper water. So, but I like to look at images. As any picture speaks 1,000 words. So I like to kind of look at other people's photos and stuff, and I'll dig into them and actually look into their backgrounds and stuff. And then I'll go even further and I'll look for local tournaments. This club right here, Red TKE Bass Trail, I hope I said that right. They fish a lot on Swinging Bridge, and I actually was able to find, if I went down, where is it? Bear with me. Swinging Bridge. So they fished it July 21st of 2018. So it was over a year ago, but you get an idea of what kind of fish came out of there. It looks like everybody, pretty much caught a limit. It was July, so it was a couple months earlier than September. But sometimes you can match it up and find a club that's, was on the lake a couple weeks ago, and you could kind of get an idea what kind of limits are coming out of there. You could see more smallmouth will come in this time of year out of the lake than largemouth. So the smallmouth bite, if this was like right around within a week or two of us fishing, I would say the smallmouth bite might be a little hotter than the largemouth. So I might want to consider targeting smallmouth, during my pre-fishing. And then you could go further, and I was actually able to find this club on Facebook, and this club actually is going to have another tournament. I think they have an annual 2-day tournament on Swinging Bridge in October. So I was able to get some images of past years, and it kind of looks like, look, there's a lot of smallmouth in these pictures. So smallmouth might be the dominant bass in this lake. So smallmouth might be the dominant bass in this lake. So you kind of get an idea again, too, for the layout of the land, so to speak, by looking at some of these background pictures and stuff. You can see the weights here were a little higher, actually, in October than in that July tournament. 14 pounds, 16 pounds. So you can get an idea of that, too. It's some nice, solid fish. Here's a couple nice largemouth that came out of the lake. So you can see what kind of bags are getting produced and around what time of year. It looks like it gets a little better as the fall comes in. So this might be a good lake for us, this time of year. So now I got a good solid amount of information. The last thing I would do is go to YouTube and type in Swinging Bridge Reservoir, New York bass fishing. Here we go. And bam, here we go. Somebody kayak fishing the lake. So you got a 20-minute video here of a guy kayak fishing Swinging Bridge. So you can watch this video, get a real good visual for what's going on. Bass opener, these guys took second place. So I watched this video actually, and they were doing a lot of flipping and pitching into bushes and throwing spinnerbaits around docks. This is awesome when you can find videos like this. Somebody actually took a drone and flew it around the lake. So there's nothing better than getting an aerial view of the lake from a drone. This is awesome. Look at these docks. You see these are all floating docks. You can see the water level looks like it's back up a little bit more than it was in that satellite imaging that we looked at earlier. So you can see maybe some of those areas that were drawn down that we marked might be underwater. So it's good to kind of get a good idea of this. This is a 10-minute aerial view of all parts of the lake. There's that point that we were looking at earlier that jets way out. You could see the water's back up, and that point is underwater. I'm definitely gonna hit this spot, especially this time of year. So you can see by videos like this and stuff. These are the best when you can get information like this. I'm going to watch this video very carefully and go back over my mapping again before I go out there on Sunday to kind of get another lay of the land. Okay, so to sum up our off the water research, what did we come up with so far for Swinging Bridge? Well, we know it's kind of a sandy, rocky shoreline. There's a lot of points. There's a lot of boat docks. We know that smallmouth seem to be the more dominant fish in the lake by looking at past fishing tournaments. We also know that the dam could possibly be a good area. We have a good idea by looking at that aerial footage of the lake on YouTube that the water level is back up, and that our satellite imaging that we looked at earlier might have been from an earlier time, because this point here seems to be way more exposed than it was in this video. So you can see the water's back up, and this video was taken in 2016 after the dam came back up. I think the dam was down in 2014, 2015. So you could tell the water levels come back up. Or this could just be the difference between summer pool and winter pool. Who knows? But one thing we know for certain is, at one point this was exposed, and then at another point this was underwater. So we'll be able to see when we get up there. We know where our two boat ramps are by looking at the past information. So we know where we're going to launch. We got an idea of how big the lake is, how far away it is, what other species of fish are in the lake, so we can kind of figure out what they're going to be keying in on. We know this lake is very deep. It has a lot of offshore structure. So that's going to help us pick out our baits for pre-fishing, and I'll cover that, which baits I'm going to choose to pre-fish this lake and why I selected them based on this research when we get to the pre-fishing video. But this is basically going to wrap up the off the water research video. I hope you learned something. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. I appreciate it. Also, feel free to throw a comment down below if you want any further information, or you want to have a conversation about something that I went over, and we could dive a little deeper into it. But basically, this is how I'm going to break these lakes down, and I'm going to give you the information that I learned from each lake before I go up and pre-fish it. And then when we get to the pre-fishing video again, I'll show you guys which baits I chose and why I selected them. So, all right, thanks for watching.